Murder on the Alexandria Express. Chapter 1. The Departure. The Grand Alexandria Express stood gleaming on the platform, its polished wood and brass fittings evoking a bygone era of opulence and elegance. The train's reputation for luxury and comfort made it the preferred choice for Egypt's elite, and tonight's journey from Alexandria to Cairo promised to be no different. As the station clock struck 7, passengers began to arrive, each carrying their own purpose, stories and secrets. Dr. Ibrahim Salim was among the first to arrive. Standing tall with an air of scholarly distinction, he adjusted his glasses and looked thoughtfully at the train. The esteemed archaeologist had spent the last 6 months in Alexandria, leading an excavation that had unearthed remarkable artifacts from Egypt's ancient past. His latest discovery, a set of hieroglyphs hinting at a previously unknown dynasty, had the potential to revolutionize their understanding of Egyptian history. Dr. Salim's thoughts were a mix of excitement and anxiety as he boarded the train. The funding for his research was always precarious, and he knew that presenting his findings in Cairo was crucial for securing future support. As he settled into his compartment, he mentally reviewed his notes and the artifacts he carried with him, determined to make a compelling case to his peers. Next to arrive was Sophia Darwish, a vision of beauty and grace. Her fashionable attire and confident demeanor attracted admiring glances from those around her, but beneath her composed exterior, Sophia was in turmoil. A prominent socialite in Cairo, she had spent a week in Alexandria, attempting to distance herself from a scandal that threatened to ruin her reputation. Sophia's heart raced as she approached the train, her mind replaying the events that had led her here. An indiscretion at one of her lavish parties had been captured in a compromising photograph, and Omar Nassar had obtained it. His demands for money in exchange for his silence had pushed her to the brink of desperation. She hoped that returning to Cairo would provide an opportunity to resolve the situation and reclaim her standing in society. As she boarded the train, she couldn't help but glance nervously over her shoulder, fearing that her past might catch up with her. Colonel Mahmoud Farouk arrived with a stern expression, his military bearing unmistakable. The retired officer had served Egypt with distinction, but his career had ended abruptly due to a scandal involving corrupt arms deals, a scandal he believed Omar Nasser had orchestrated. Farouk's once bright future had been tarnished, and he harbored a deep resentment towards the businessman. As he stepped onto the train, Colonel Farouk felt a mixture of dread and resolve. He was returning to Cairo with a singular purpose: to confront Omar Nassar and clear his name. His thoughts were a whirlwind of strategies and contingencies, each plan more desperate than the last. The train's journey was his opportunity to seek the justice that had been denied to him, and he was prepared to do whatever it took to achieve it. Moving with purpose through the crowd was Yasmin Khalil, a sharp-eyed journalist known for her fearless reporting on corruption and injustice. Her investigative prowess had earned her both acclaim and enmity in equal measure. Yasmin was returning to Cairo with explosive information about Omar Nassar, information that could bring down one of the most powerful men in Egypt. During her time in Alexandria, Yasmin had gathered the final pieces of her story, meticulously verifying every detail. She knew the risks involved in publishing such a controversial exposé, but her commitment to the truth was unwavering. As she boarded the train, Yasmin steeled herself for the challenges ahead, aware that Omar's reach extended far and wide. She was determined to see her story published, no matter the cost. Lastly, Omar Nasser arrived, his presence commanding and his confidence unshaken. The wealthy businessman had just closed another lucrative deal in Alexandria and was on his way back to Cairo to solidify his power base. Omar thrived on control and manipulation, relishing the fear and respect he commanded. However, beneath his confident exterior lay a man constantly aware of the enemies he had made. As he boarded the Alexandria Express, Omar dismissed his unease, confident that no one could touch him. He looked forward to his return to Cairo, where his influence was strongest. The train was a mere vehicle for his journey back to power and prosperity, and he paid little mind to the other passengers, considering them inconsequential to his grand schemes. The train's whistle blew, signaling its imminent departure. As the passengers settled into their compartments, the rhythmic chug of the engine began, and the Alexandria Express slowly pulled out of the station, its journey toward Cairo underway. The luxurious interior of the train, with its plush seats and elegant decor, provided a stark contrast to the undercurrents of tension and intrigue among the passengers. Dr. Salim busied himself with his notes, trying to focus on the presentation he would give upon arrival. Sophia took a deep breath and tried to calm her nerves, hoping to find a solution to her predicament. Colonel Farouk sat rigidly, his mind racing with plans of retribution. Yasmin reviewed her notes, each word a potential catalyst for change. Omar Nasser leaned back in his seat, a smug smile on his face, unaware of the danger that loomed closer with each passing mile. Little did they know, the journey on the Alexandria Express would soon take a deadly turn, intertwining their fates in ways they could never have imagined. Chapter 2. The Incident. The Alexandria Express sped through the Egyptian landscape, the rhythmic clattering of wheels against the rails, creating a soothing backdrop for the passengers. The train's opulent interior, adorned with rich mahogany and brass, exuded an air of comfort and sophistication. Despite the outward serenity, tension simmered beneath the surface as each passenger grappled with their own thoughts and fears. In the dining car, the passengers gathered for dinner. The soft glow of candlelight reflected off crystal glasses and fine china, lending an air of elegance to the meal. Dr. Ibrahim Salim engaged in a lively discussion with a fellow academic about the latest archaeological findings. His enthusiasm was palpable, but a shadow of worry crossed his face when the topic turned to funding. Sophia Darwish, resplendent in a shimmering evening gown, sipped her wine delicately, her eyes darting around the room. She exchanged polite conversation with those around her, but her mind was elsewhere, consumed by the blackmail threat hanging over her. Across the table, Colonel Mahmoud Farouk observed her with a mix of curiosity and suspicion, his military instincts alert to every nuance and gesture. Yasmin Khalil, always the keen observer, made mental notes of the interactions around her. She could sense the underlying tensions and unresolved conflicts. As she glanced at Omar Nasser, seated at a table in the corner, she felt a surge of determination. The time was nearing when she would expose his crimes for the world to see. Omar, for his part, appeared unbothered. He enjoyed his meal with a self-satisfied air, occasionally glancing at his pocket watch as if impatient for the journey to end. His confidence bordered on arrogance, and he seemed oblivious to the storm brewing around him. After dinner, the passengers retired to their compartments, the train gently rocking them as it continued its journey through the night. The soft hum of the train and the occasional whistle as it passed through small towns added to the atmosphere of tranquil isolation. A few hours into the journey, the peace was shattered by a blood-curdling scream. It came from the direction of Omar Nassar's compartment. The sound pierced the stillness of the night, causing a flurry of activity as passengers and staff rushed towards the source of the commotion. Dr. Ibrahim Salim was among the first to arrive. His medical training took over as he pushed through the growing crowd. Sophia Darwish stood nearby, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Colonel Farouk arrived moments later, his face a mask of controlled intensity. Yasmin Khalil, notebook in hand, edged closer, her journalist instincts kicking in. Omar Nassar lay sprawled on the floor of his compartment, a knife protruding from his chest. Blood pooled around him, staining the luxurious carpet. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, and it was immediately clear that he was beyond help. Dr. Salim knelt beside the body, his fingers searching for a pulse. He looked up, his expression grim. "He's dead," he announced, his voice heavy with finality. The train's conductor, a middle-aged man with a worn face from years of service, arrived and quickly assessed the situation. "We must secure the area and notify the authorities in Cairo," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Until then, no one is to leave the train." The passengers exchanged nervous glances, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They were trapped on the train with a murderer among them. The conductor, sensing the rising panic, took charge. "Everyone, please return to your compartments. We will conduct a thorough investigation. No one is to leave until we reach Cairo." Among the passengers was Detective Layla El-Sayed, a renowned investigator who had been taking a much-needed vacation. She stepped forward, her keen eyes scanning the scene. "I am Detective Layla El-Sayed. I will assist with the investigation until we reach Cairo," she offered, her reputation for solving complex cases preceding her. The conductor nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Detective. Your assistance will be invaluable." Detective Layla began her investigation by securing the crime scene. She instructed the passengers to return to their compartments, making a mental note of their reactions and behavior. Once the area was cleared, she meticulously examined the scene. The murder weapon, a unique knife with an intricately designed handle, lay near Omar's body. Its distinct design hinted at cultural significance, possibly narrowing down the suspects. She carefully bagged the knife for further analysis. Next, she turned her attention to the body. Omar's clothing was slightly disheveled, suggesting a brief struggle. His pocket watch lay on the floor, its glass face shattered. Layla noted the time it had stopped, which might provide a crucial timeline for the murder. Detective Layla then began questioning the passengers, starting with those who had been closest to the scene. Each passenger provided an account of their whereabouts and activities leading up to the scream. While most seemed genuine, a few responses contained inconsistencies that piqued her interest. Dr. Salim recounted his evening, describing his dinner conversation and subsequent return to his compartment. His calm demeanor and logical explanations were convincing, but Layla sensed a hint of anxiety beneath his composed exterior. Sophia Darwish, still visibly shaken, explained that she had been preparing for bed when she heard the scream. Her nervousness was palpable, and Layla wondered if it stemmed from more than just the shock of the murder. Colonel Farouk's military precision was evident in his account. He described his evening in detail, his stern face betraying little emotion. Yet Layla detected a simmering anger in his eyes, suggesting unresolved issues with the victim. Yasmin Khalil's account was succinct and confident. She had been working on her notes when the scream interrupted her. Her determination to uncover the truth was clear, but Layla couldn't ignore the potential bias of a journalist with a vendetta against the deceased. As Layla continued her questioning, she knew that each passenger harbored secrets and potential motives. The clues she had gathered so far pointed in multiple directions, and the task of unraveling the truth seemed daunting. The Alexandria Express hurtled through the night, carrying its passengers and their secrets towards an uncertain dawn. Chapter 3. The investigation begins. The atmosphere on the Alexandria Express had shifted dramatically following the discovery of Omar Nassar's body. Fear and suspicion hung heavy in the air as the passengers retreated to their compartments, casting wary glances at one another. In the midst of this tension, Detective Layla El-Sayed stepped forward, her presence a beacon of calm authority. Detective Layla El-Sayed was well known in law enforcement circles for her keen intellect and unerring instincts. Her cases were the stuff of legend, filled with complex puzzles and elusive criminals. Despite being on vacation, she could not turn away from the challenge presented by the murder on the Alexandria Express. "I will help until we reach Cairo," Layla said, her voice steady and composed. The passengers and train staff, visibly relieved, nodded in agreement. The conductor, who had taken charge initially, gratefully handed over the responsibility to her. Layla began by securing the crime scene. She instructed the conductor to ensure no one tampered with the evidence and requested that everyone stay in their compartments until she had a chance to speak with them. With the immediate area cleared, she turned her attention to Omar Nassar's body. The murder weapon, a knife with an intricately designed handle, lay on the floor next to Omar's lifeless body. Layla carefully picked it up using a handkerchief to avoid contaminating any fingerprints. The knife's unique design suggested it was more than just an ordinary weapon. It had cultural and perhaps personal significance. She placed it in an evidence bag, noting its details for later analysis. As she examined Omar's body, Layla noted signs of a brief struggle. His shirt was torn, and there were defensive wounds on his hands. His pocket watch, now shattered, had stopped at precisely 10:15 p.m. This would help establish the time of death. Layla also observed a piece of fabric caught under Omar's fingernails, which she carefully collected. With the initial examination complete, Layla began her interviews with the passengers, starting with those closest to the scene. Dr. Ibrahim Salim was first. The archaeologist appeared composed, yet Layla sensed an underlying tension. He recounted his evening in detail, from his dinner conversation to his return to his compartment. "I was discussing my latest findings with a colleague when I heard the scream," he explained. Layla noted his calm demeanor, but couldn't ignore the anxiety that flickered in his eyes when he mentioned his research. Next, she spoke with Sophia Darwish. The socialite was visibly shaken, her hands trembling as she spoke. "I was getting ready for bed when I heard the scream," she said, her voice quivering. Layla observed Sophia's nervous glances and the way she avoided eye contact, hinting at deeper fears. "Did you see or hear anything unusual earlier in the evening?" Layla asked. Sophia shook her head, her expression one of genuine fear. Colonel Mahmoud Farouk was as stern and disciplined as his military background suggested. He described his evening with precision, noting the exact times he did various activities. "I was in my compartment reviewing some documents when I heard the scream," he stated. Layla sensed a simmering anger beneath his controlled exterior, particularly when he mentioned Omar's name. When Layla questioned Yasmin Khalil, the journalist was direct and confident. "I was working on my notes for an article when the scream interrupted me," she said, holding up her notebook as if to prove her point. Yasmin's determination to uncover the truth was evident, but Layla knew that a journalist with a vendetta could have mixed motives. Each interview revealed inconsistencies and potential motives. Dr. Salim's anxiety hinted at financial or academic pressures, possibly linked to Omar's funding of his excavations. Sophia's fear suggested she was hiding something, perhaps related to the blackmail Omar held over her. Colonel Farouk's anger pointed to a desire for revenge over the scandal that had tarnished his career. Yasmin's unwavering determination and proximity to the victim indicated she had the means and perhaps the motive to act. Detective Layla pieced together the information, aware that the key to solving the murder lay in understanding the relationships and hidden connections between these passengers. The unique knife, the time of death, and the fabric found on Omar's body were crucial clues that needed further examination. As the train continued its journey toward Cairo, Layla knew that time was of the essence. The murderer was still among them, and every passenger was a suspect. The tension on the Alexandria Express was palpable, and with each passing mile the mystery deepened. Chapter 4: Uncovering Motives. Detective Layla El Sayed spent the next few hours delving into the backgrounds of the key passengers, determined to uncover the hidden motives that could have driven any of them to murder Omar Nassar. Each suspect had their own secrets and potential reasons for wanting Omar dead, and Layla knew that understanding these motives was crucial to solving the case. Dr. Ibrahim Salim had enjoyed a prestigious career as an archaeologist, his work funded by various wealthy patrons, including Omar Nassar. However, recent developments in his latest excavation had brought unforeseen complications. Layla discovered that Dr. Salim had unearthed artifacts that contradicted established historical narratives, and Omar, fearing the implications for his own investments and reputation, had threatened to cut off funding unless Dr. Salim suppressed the findings. Layla met with Dr. Salim in his compartment. "Dr. Salim, I understand Omar Nassar was a significant benefactor for your work. Can you tell me more about your relationship with him?" Dr. Salim sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his temples. Omar was interested in the prestige associated with archaeological discoveries. He was more concerned with how it benefited him financially and socially than the historical value. "Recently, I found something that could rewrite parts of our history, but Omar didn't care about that. He wanted me to bury the findings, literally and figuratively." Layla noted his frustration. "Did you have any confrontations with him about this?" "Yes," Dr. Salim admitted. "Just before this trip, he made it clear that if I didn't comply with his demands, he would withdraw his funding. I refused. I couldn't let greed dictate the course of history." This revelation painted a picture of a man under immense pressure, desperate to protect his career and integrity. Sophia Darwish was another suspect with a complex relationship with Omar. The young socialite had financial ties to him, which Layla quickly discovered were more sinister than they appeared on the surface. Omar had been blackmailing Sophia over a past indiscretion, a scandalous affair that could ruin her reputation and social standing if it ever came to light. Layla found Sophia in her compartment, nervously pacing. "Miss Darwish, I understand you had a close financial relationship with Mr. Nassar. Can you explain the nature of it?" Sophia's face paled. "Omar and I were involved. He helped me financially, but recently he discovered something about my past, a mistake I made years ago. He threatened to expose it unless I paid him a substantial sum. I didn't have that kind of money. I was trapped." "So you were being blackmailed," Layla confirmed. "Did you confront him about this?" "I tried to reason with him, but he was relentless," Sophia said, tears welling in her eyes. "I was desperate. He made me feel like there was no way out." This motive suggested Sophia might have seen murder as her only escape from Omar's grip. Colonel Mahmoud Farouk was a man of honor, or at least he had been until a scandal involving corrupt arms deals had tarnished his career. Layla's investigation revealed that Omar Nassar had played a pivotal role in this scandal. Omar's involvement had led to the colonel's forced retirement and disgrace, filling Farouk with a desire for revenge. Layla confronted Colonel Farouk in the observation car. "Colonel, I understand that Omar Nassar was involved in the scandal that ended your military career. Can you tell me more about that?" Farouk's expression hardened. Omar was a snake. He facilitated illegal arms deals and then manipulated the situation to make me the scapegoat. I lost everything because of him, my career, my honor. I wanted justice. "Did you plan to confront him on this journey?" Layla asked. "I did," Farouk admitted. "I intended to make him confess, to clear my name. But I didn't plan to kill him, Detective. I wanted to see him punished legally." Despite his anger, Farouk's adherence to a code of honor complicated the question of whether he could resort to murder. Finally, there was Yasmin Khalil, the investigative journalist whose work had been closing in on Omar's illicit activities. Layla discovered that Yasmin had been gathering evidence for a major exposé that could bring down Omar and his empire. This investigation had put her in Omar's crosshairs, making her a target for his retribution. Layla found Yasmin in the lounge, reviewing her notes. "Ms. Khalil, your work has brought you dangerously close to exposing Omar Nassar. How far had you progressed?" Yasmin looked up, determination flashing in her eyes. "I had everything I needed. Documents, witness statements, financial records. Omar's empire was built on corruption. I was ready to publish, but I knew the risks. Omar wouldn't hesitate to silence me." "Did he ever threaten you directly?" Layla asked. "Many times," Yasmin replied. "He made it clear that if I didn't back off, I would face severe consequences. But I couldn't let that stop me. The truth needed to come out." Yasmin's fearless pursuit of justice made her a formidable adversary to Omar, but it also meant she had a powerful motive for wanting him dead. As Detective Layla pieced together these stories, it became clear that each suspect had a compelling reason to kill Omar Nassar. However, each motive also served as a potential red herring, designed to mislead her from the true killer. The challenge lay in discerning the truth amidst a web of lies and half-truths. With the train speeding towards Cairo, time was running out. Layla knew that the answers she sought were within reach, but she would need to untangle the intricate threads of motive and opportunity to reveal the murderer. The tension on the Alexandria Express was palpable, and with every passing mile, the mystery deepened. Chapter 5: Clues and Red Herrings. The Alexandria Express continued its journey through the night, the steady rhythm of the train a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding within. Detective Layla El Sayed knew that the key to solving Omar Nasser's murder lay in the clues scattered around the scene. Yet, the deeper she delved, the more she realized that some of these clues might have been deliberately planted to mislead her. Layla began her investigation by returning to the crime scene. She had secured the compartment earlier, but now she needed to examine it with fresh eyes. She started with the torn piece of fabric found near Omar's body. Holding it up to the light, she saw that it matched the coat worn by Dr. Ibrahim Salim. The material was distinctive high-quality tweed, uncommon in Egypt's warm climate. Layla approached Dr. Salim's compartment. "Dr. Salim, may I see your coat?" she asked. Dr. Salim, looking perplexed but compliant, retrieved his coat from the luggage rack. Layla carefully compared the fabric to the piece she had found. The match was undeniable. "Do you know how this happened?" Layla asked, showing him the torn piece. Dr. Salim examined it closely, his brow furrowed in confusion. "I have no idea. My coat was intact when I hung it up after dinner. I haven't worn it since." Layla noted his genuine bewilderment, but remained cautious. "Thank you, Dr. Salim. Please remain available for further questions." Next, Layla examined the footprint outside Omar's compartment. The distinct impression resembled the military boots worn by Colonel Mahmoud Farouk. She called for Farouk and asked him to step outside. "Colonel Farouk, I need to check your boots against a footprint found at the scene," she said. Farouk, standing rigidly, complied without hesitation. Layla compared the sole of his boot to the footprint. The size and tread matched perfectly. "Do you recall being near Mr. Nassar's compartment last night?" she asked. Farouk shook his head. "I remained in my compartment after dinner, reviewing documents. I did not leave until I heard the scream." Layla made a mental note of his response. The evidence was circumstantial but troubling. She needed more to go on. In Sophia Darwish's compartment, Layla found a crumpled note hidden among her belongings. It was a desperate plea for money, written in hurried, almost frantic handwriting. The note read, "Please, Omar, I need more time. I can get the money, just give me a few more days. I can't let anyone find out. You promised to help me." Layla confronted Sophia with the note. "Miss Darwish, can you explain this?" Sophia's face turned ashen. She took a deep breath before responding. "Omar was blackmailing me. He had something on me from my past, something that could ruin me. I was desperate to keep it secret." "Did you write this note?" Layla asked. Sophia nodded. "Yes, I did. I slipped it under his door earlier in the evening, hoping to buy more time." Layla could see the fear in Sophia's eyes, but whether it stemmed from guilt or desperation remained unclear. Finally, Layla turned her attention to Yasmin Khalil. Among Yasmin's belongings, Layla found a draft of an article detailing Omar's criminal dealings. The article was meticulously researched, outlining Omar's connections to various illegal activities. It was evident that Yasmin had been close to publishing a career-defining piece. "Ms. Khalil, this article is quite comprehensive. How close were you to publishing it?" Layla asked. Yasmin looked determined. Very close. I had all the evidence I needed. Omar knew I was onto him. He threatened me, but I couldn't back down. Did you confront him about this? Layla inquired. Not directly. I didn't want to give him the chance to silence me before I could publish, but he knew I was closing in. As Layla pieced together these clues, she realized the complexity of the situation. Each piece of evidence pointed to a different suspect, yet none of the clues provided definitive proof. The torn fabric suggested Dr. Salim had been near the scene, but he had no clear motive to physically confront Omar. The footprint indicated Colonel Farouk's presence, but it could have been planted to mislead the investigation. The note revealed Sophia's desperate need for money and motive, but it didn't prove she committed the murder. The draft article showed Yasmin had a strong motive, but she seemed more intent on exposing Omar than killing him. Layla began to suspect that someone had gone to great lengths to frame multiple passengers, creating a labyrinth of red herrings to throw her off the trail. The question was, who among them was cunning enough to orchestrate such a scheme and bold enough to carry out the murder in the first place? As the train sped towards Cairo, Layla knew she had to dig deeper into each suspect's story. Time was running out, and she needed to unravel the tangled web of lies and deceit before the murderer could strike again or escape entirely. The tension on the Alexandria Express was palpable, each passenger a potential killer, each clue a potential trap. The mystery deepened with every passing mile, and Layla's resolve to uncover the truth strengthened with it. Chapter 6. Tensions rise. As the Alexandria Express sped toward Cairo, the atmosphere on the train grew increasingly tense. With each passing hour, the passengers became more agitated, and suspicions among them escalated. Detective Layla El Sayed could feel the pressure mounting, and she knew that tensions were close to boiling over. Layla decided to keep a closer watch on the passengers, hoping to catch any slip-ups or revealing interactions. It wasn't long before her vigilance paid off. Late in the afternoon, she heard raised voices coming from the lounge car. She quickly made her way there and found Dr. Ibrahim Salim and Sophia Darwish in the midst of a heated argument. "You don't understand, Sophia. If Omar had exposed my findings, it would have destroyed my career," Dr. Salim shouted, his usual calm demeanor replaced by frustration and anger. Sophia, equally upset, retorted, "And you think I didn't have anything to lose? He was blackmailing me. My entire life would have been ruined." Layla stepped in, her authoritative presence immediately cooling the tempers. "What's going on here?" she demanded. Both Dr. Salim and Sophia fell silent, realizing they had drawn unwanted attention. Dr. Salim took a deep breath and spoke first. "We were discussing our interactions with Omar. It seems we both had reasons to despise him." "That's enough for now," Layla said firmly. "Return to your compartments and stay there until I speak to you again." As the two passengers left, Layla made a mental note of their argument. It was clear that their animosity towards Omar was not merely superficial, and their heated exchange indicated they might know more than they were letting on. Later that evening, Layla decided to check on the rest of the passengers. As she walked down the corridor, she noticed Colonel Farouk slipping into Yasmin Khalil's compartment. Intrigued, Layla approached quietly and listened from outside the door. Inside, Colonel Farouk spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Yasmin, you have to understand I had no choice. Omar set me up, and if your article goes public, it will bring everything back. We need to find a way to resolve this." Yasmin's response was equally hushed but firm. "I understand your situation, Colonel, but I can't ignore the truth. Omar's crimes need to be exposed." Before Layla could hear more, she decided it was time to intervene. She knocked sharply on the door and entered without waiting for a response. Both Yasmin and Colonel Farouk looked startled. "What's going on here?" Layla asked, her eyes narrowing as she studied their expressions. "We were discussing the implications of my article," Yasmin said quickly. "Colonel Farouk was expressing his concerns." Layla nodded slowly, taking in their nervous demeanor. "I see. Well, I'll need to speak with both of you separately later. For now, please return to your respective compartments." As they left, Layla couldn't shake the feeling that they were hiding something crucial. She decided to keep a closer watch on them both. As the night deepened, Layla continued her rounds. She passed by the conductor's office and overheard a conversation between Yasmin and the conductor. Yasmin's voice was low but insistent. "You have to help me," Yasmin was saying. "I need access to the telegraph. This story is too important." The conductor replied, sounding anxious. "Ms. Khalil, you know I can't allow that without proper authorization. Please, just wait until we reach Cairo." Layla stepped forward, revealing herself. "Is there a problem here?" Yasmin looked frustrated but resigned. "I was trying to send a message about the article. It's urgent." "We will discuss this in the morning," Layla said firmly. "For now, everyone needs to stay in their compartments." As the passengers settled in for the night, Layla decided to conduct a more thorough search of Omar Nassar's compartment. She had a nagging feeling that there was something she had missed earlier. After carefully searching through Omar's belongings, Layla made a crucial discovery. Hidden in a false bottom of one of Omar's suitcases was a stack of documents. These documents contained detailed information about each of the key passengers, highlighting their vulnerabilities and secrets. Dr. Salim's financial difficulties and the pressure to conceal his archaeological findings were meticulously documented. There were records of Sophia Darwish's past indiscretions and the extent of Omar's blackmail. Colonel Farouk's involvement in the arms scandal and how Omar had manipulated him were also detailed. Finally, there were notes on Yasmin Khalil's investigation into Omar's illicit activities, along with threats aimed at silencing her. Layla carefully reviewed the documents, realizing that Omar had been exploiting each of these passengers for his own gain. The documents provided motives for each suspect, but they also raised new questions. Why had Omar kept such incriminating evidence with him? And more importantly, who had discovered these secrets and decided to take matters into their own hands? With the discovery of these documents, the investigation became even more complex. Layla knew that the key to solving the murder lay in understanding how these passengers' lives intertwined and who had the most to gain from Omar's death. As the train sped towards Cairo, the tension among the passengers continued to rise. Layla could feel the pressure mounting, but she was determined to uncover the truth. The web of lies and deceit was becoming clearer, but the final pieces of the puzzle were still missing. Time was running out, and the murderer was still among them, watching and waiting. The next morning would bring new revelations and, Layla hoped, the breakthrough she needed to solve the case and bring the murderer to justice. Chapter 7. The Final Revelation. The dawn of a new day brought a renewed sense of urgency to Detective Layla El-Sayed. The Alexandria Express was only a few hours from Cairo, and Layla knew she had to solve the case before they arrived. The discovery of the incriminating documents in Omar Nasser's luggage had provided crucial insights, but she still needed to piece together how they fit into the larger puzzle. After a brief rest, Layla gathered all the key suspects in the dining car, where she could observe their interactions and gauge their reactions. The tension in the air was palpable as the passengers took their seats, each one wary of the others. "Thank you for joining me," Layla began, her tone calm but authoritative. "I have gathered you here because I believe the murderer is among us. I've discovered several pieces of evidence that point to each of you, but it's time to uncover the truth." She turned to Dr. Ibrahim Salim first. "Dr. Salim, the torn piece of fabric matching your coat was found near Omar's body. Can you explain how it got there?" Dr. Salim adjusted his glasses nervously. "I wish I could, Detective. As I mentioned, I had not worn my coat since dinner. Someone must have taken it without my knowledge." Layla nodded, considering his words. She then turned to Colonel Mahmoud Farouk. "Colonel, your boot print was found outside Omar's compartment. You claimed you never left your room after dinner. How do you explain this?" Colonel Farouk's jaw tightened. "I did not leave my compartment. Someone is trying to frame me. I'm certain of it." Layla shifted her gaze to Sophia Darwish. "Miss Darwish, the note found in your belongings indicates a desperate plea for money. You admitted Omar was blackmailing you. Did you see murder as your only way out?" Sophia's eyes welled with tears. "I was desperate, yes, but I could never kill anyone. I wrote that note hoping to buy more time, not to plan a murder." Finally, Layla addressed Yasmin Khalil. "Ms. Khalil, your article draft details Omar's criminal activities. You were close to publishing it, but did you decide to silence him permanently to protect yourself?" Yasmin met Layla's gaze steadily. "I wanted to expose him, not kill him. Omar's crimes needed to be brought to light. Killing him would defeat that purpose." With each suspect maintaining their innocence, Layla knew she needed to reveal the crucial discovery she had made in Omar's luggage. "Last night, I found a hidden compartment in Omar's suitcase containing detailed documents about each of you. These documents highlight your vulnerabilities and secrets, indicating that Omar had been exploiting all of you." She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. "This evidence shows that each of you had a motive to kill Omar, but it also suggests that someone had discovered these secrets and decided to take action." Layla studied their reactions closely. Dr. Salim looked horrified. Sophia seemed distraught. Colonel Farouk's anger was barely contained, and Yasmin remained resolute. "I believe the answer lies in who had the most to gain from Omar's death, and who had the opportunity to plant the evidence," Layla continued. "One of you orchestrated this scheme to frame the others, creating a web of confusion to mask your true intentions." At that moment, a subtle shift in the atmosphere caught Layla's attention. The conductor, who had been standing quietly in the background, took a small step back, his face pale. Layla's eyes narrowed as she turned her attention to him. "Conductor, you've been assisting me throughout this investigation, but there's something I've overlooked. You have access to every compartment, and you would have the opportunity to plant evidence." The conductor's eyes widened in panic. "Detective, I assure you, I had no part in this." Layla stepped closer, her voice firm. "You were seen speaking with Yasmin about accessing the telegraph. What was so urgent that you needed to communicate?" Before the conductor could respond, Yasmin spoke up. "It wasn't just about the article. He mentioned something about Omar's business dealings, something that could ruin him completely." Layla's mind raced, piecing together the final puzzle. The conductor must have found out about Omar's plans to cut him out of a lucrative deal. In a desperate attempt to save himself, he decided to murder Omar and frame the passengers, knowing their past connections to Omar would make them plausible suspects. The conductor's facade crumbled. "I didn't have a choice. Omar was going to ruin me. I needed to protect myself." Layla's voice softened slightly, sensing the man's desperation. "But by trying to protect yourself, you've only ensured your own downfall. Murder was not the answer." The conductor, realizing the gravity of his actions, sank into a nearby chair, his face ashen. "I thought I could outsmart everyone, but I see now that I was wrong." Layla turned to the passengers, who looked on in a mix of relief and shock. "The truth is out. Omar's murder was driven by greed and desperation, but justice will be served." As the train pulled into Cairo station, the authorities were waiting. The conductor was taken into custody, his plan to frame the passengers foiled by Layla's keen instincts and relentless pursuit of the truth. The passengers disembarked, shaken but grateful for Layla's intervention. Dr. Salim, Sophia, Colonel Farouk and Yasmin each expressed their gratitude, knowing they were free to rebuild their lives. Detective Layla El Sayed watched as the Alexandria Express departed for its next journey. The memory of this deadly trip etched in her mind. She reflected on the complexities of human nature and the lengths to which people would go to protect themselves. As she stepped off the platform, Layla knew that this case, like many before it, had tested her skills and resolve. But she also knew that justice, though sometimes elusive, was always worth pursuing. Chapter 8, Epilogue. The bustling station in Cairo was a sharp contrast to the tense atmosphere that had enveloped the Alexandria Express during its journey. As the passengers disembarked, a palpable sense of relief mingled with the lingering shock of the events that had unfolded. Detective Layla El Sayed stood on the platform, watching as the authorities escorted the conductor away in handcuffs. The weight of the case settled heavily on her shoulders, but there was also a sense of satisfaction in having unraveled the mystery. Dr. Ibrahim Salim approached Layla, his expression one of gratitude and lingering concern. "Detective, I can't thank you enough for your help. This ordeal has been a harsh reminder of the dangers that can accompany our pursuits." Layla nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "I'm glad I could help, Dr. Salim. I hope your findings will be met with the recognition they deserve, without further interference." Dr. Salim smiled faintly. "Thank you, Detective. I will ensure my discoveries are presented with the integrity they warrant. Omar's actions will not tarnish the truth." As Dr. Salim walked away, Sophia Darwish stepped forward, her eyes still haunted by the ordeal, but filled with a new determination. "Detective El Sayed, you saved my life. I don't know how to repay you." Layla placed a comforting hand on Sophia's shoulder. You don't need to repay me, Sophia. Use this experience to build a stronger, more independent future. You have the strength to overcome this." Sophia nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I will, thank you." Colonel Mahmoud Farouk was next, his stern demeanor softened by genuine appreciation. "Detective, your dedication to justice is commendable. I hope this clears my name once and for all." "It will, Colonel," Layla assured him. "The truth has a way of coming to light, and your honor will be restored." Finally, Yasmin Khalil approached, her expression a mix of respect and admiration. "Detective El Sayed, your investigative skills are unparalleled. This story will be told, not just Omar's crimes, but also the courage of those who stood against him." Layla smiled. "Thank you, Yasmin. The truth is what matters most. Use your platform to bring justice and awareness to those who need it." As the passengers dispersed, Layla took a moment to reflect on the case. The journey had been fraught with danger and deceit, but it had also highlighted the resilience of the human spirit. Each passenger had faced their own battles and emerged stronger for it. The train station gradually returned to its usual bustle, the echoes of the past few days fading into the background. Layla made her way to the exit, her mind already shifting to the next challenge. Yet this case would remain with her, a testament to the complexities of human nature and the thin line between desperation and crime. Outside the station, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over Cairo. Layla took a deep breath, appreciating the city's vibrant energy. She had always been drawn to the pulse of Cairo, with its rich history and dynamic present. It was a city of contrasts, much like the case she had just solved. As she walked through the bustling streets, Layla felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her vacation had been anything but restful, yet it had reaffirmed her commitment to justice. She knew there would always be new mysteries to solve, new challenges to face, and she was ready for them. Back at her office, Layla reviewed her notes, ensuring every detail of the case was documented. The conductor's confession, the incriminating documents, the motives and alibis of each suspect, all meticulously recorded. She closed the file with a sense of closure, knowing it would serve as a valuable reference for future cases. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from her superior, commending her on the successful resolution of the case and hinting at another high-profile investigation that required her expertise. Layla smiled, feeling the familiar rush of anticipation. There was always more work to be done, more justice to seek. As the evening wore on, Layla allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She thought about the passengers she had met, each of them a reminder of the complexities of human nature. They had all been drawn together by a common enemy, their lives intersecting in unexpected ways. And though the journey had been perilous, it had also been a testament to resilience and courage. With a final glance at the city skyline, Layla rose from her desk. There would be time to rest later. For now, there was another case to prepare for, another puzzle to solve. She grabbed her coat and headed out the door, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The Alexandria Express had been a journey unlike any other, but it was just one chapter in the ever-unfolding story of Detective Layla El Sayed. And as she moved forward, she knew that each new case would bring its own challenges and rewards, deepening her commitment to uncovering the truth and ensuring justice for all.